BBQ Fat. Man, I'm so excited for tonight's show. We got a lot going on. What an incredible points chase this ended up being. I tell you what, we had Brad and Joe on a couple weeks ago talking about the points chase and what Joe had to do in order to win. And I tell you what, Joe did not mess around. Last week he got two reserves. I mean, the poor guy, he was doing everything he can to get there. The guy gave it everything he had. It was great. And then this week, going on with all the duels and the doubles and everything else, seeing the way that the categories shaped up, just so cool. So cool to see all this go down. But big congratulations to Brad. Big congratulations to all those who won the categories. I know Brad won, I believe, chicken and brisket. Paul and Chris Shaver. I'm not real sure who won. I don't know if it was a tie or if Paul won. I don't know. We'll get into that later. On the rib guide too. But great show lined up for tonight. Now that the season is over, points chase is over. 2021, Paul won the tie. Okay, thank you. Would love to hear the tiebreaker. What's up, Philip? How you doing, man? But guys, with KCBS's 2021 season over, we're moving towards the 2022, and there's a lot of new things going on, a lot of fun on. And I've been talking with Charles about different things, and got the new program that's coming up for moving forward in 2021 or 2022. Excuse me. So bring Charles on, and I am really looking forward to this KCBS conversation tonight. We're going to have a lot of good talks going on, and it is going to be really good. So bring your questions about judging us, and we'll get into it. His score was a third, and mine. Oh man, Chris! I tell you what, that's about like Charles. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Hey, my man, how you doing?
Hey, sir. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. So just talking about the points, I know brisket, you got up to 7 and you missed out on the brisket championship by 2 points.
2 points.
I mean, that was crazy close.
Well, you know what? They say Tuffy always told me that it's the bonus points that make or break you, and it couldn't have been more proven to me that this year. If we had a couple more teams at that contest or on the Sunday contest, I'm blaming myself for putting in burn-ins. We thought that they were awesome. We all know that burn-ins are very subjective. I actually thought my brisket on Sunday was better than Saturday, but either way, to come that close, that's the second time that I've got a second place. I got second place in chicken one year, but it's competitive, and I love it. That's why we go out and can do this every weekend, right?
That's right. I mean, not only second brisket, you fourth overall. I mean, you had a heck of a year yourself. I mean, congratulations on a great year. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I'm sure you had a lot of fun, a lot of great stories to tell along the way.
Yeah, but you know what? I got to say thank you first to the guys that hang out with me, Chris Driver, Barry Bernstein, and Randy. Between the three of them, they've got a separate conversation going on because none of them have enough time to be able to go out as many weekends as I do. And, Chris is the northern contention. Every time I go north, Chris ends up usually cooking with me. When I go down south, it's going to be Randy or Barry. And anything that's big, sometimes all three of them will jump on board. And I could not do it alone. For those guys that do out there and compete every weekend by themselves, I think about, Fred Vegas Smokers and, just a lot of guys that are out there that do it by themselves. And to be able to step away from your trailer, to run in a turn-in box and come back in and reset and get your mind focused on the next category, I don't see how they do it.
I mean, Brad and Joe every time I've seen them, they cook by themselves also, right? I mean, it's wild. I mean, people don't give enough credit for how much work goes into all that stuff when you do it by yourself and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And we're proud of Paul and Lynn, Rooters and Tutors. They had a great Kerry Chastain. He's on here. He had 2 top 5 or 2 top 10s in Casey. Good job, man. Paul, I just don't believe that, Paul. You're a great guy with a lot of friends. Chad Stewart, that's right. My wife and Jimmy, they come and help me, and it makes it so much better when they're there. But anyway, Charles, there's a lot going on in KCBS these days, right? Like 2021's over. We're looking forward to 2022. And, I had Emily on a couple months ago, and she was talking about KCBS's the judging program and the extending the curriculum or whatever for judges. And that's kind of something we're going to get into tonight, correct?
That's the key. That's that's a big one.
So real quick, I did a terrible job. I brought you on and I didn't let you introduce yourself. So go ahead and introduce yourself as a cook team and also who you are on KCBS board.
So my name is Childs Cridlin. I am the pit master for Wolf's Revenge Barbecue. And I am also on the board this year. I lead up the certified barbecue judge chair. And well, there you go. The two big hats that I wear this year besides my day job.
That's awesome. And I will say this, I've had conversations with you on multiple occasions about different rules or things that are going on with KCBS. And every questions about KCBS, Charles is a great guy to go to. I had a compliment. I told somebody that you were coming on tonight, and there was a big compliment. I would say it was a big compliment to you. And anytime anybody has a question about KCBS or anything board related, and you're cooking at a contest or whatever, they say that you can go to Charles and he will answer your question. He will give you an honest answer and a heartfelt answer. So, I couldn't anymore. I was talking to my buddy Robert with Smoke Me Silly today and told him you're coming on. I was like, man, the guy is just absolutely amazing in being able to listen to concerns and then still represent KCBS well. So thank you so much for what you've done, and looking forward to this conversation tonight, because this is, as cooks, we always talk about judges, right? It's always the judges for whatever reason, good, bad, and different. I think it's just easier for us to say, oh, the judges didn't do me right. And, but anyway, so you have JCUP coming out, right? And that's something that has been talked about y'all released in the bull sheet, I guess, today. So
yes, it's been on the news since it was approved by the board last week. I guess let me back up a little bit and go to the beginning of this year, when the entire board, we set our goals and the things that we want to work on and prioritize them. Last year, I was on the rules committee, and I was just happy being there. It was a great learning experience. Had a great committee that I was working with there, and they decided they wanted to put me, mostly because of my technical background, to lead the charge, and they wanted to work on continuing education. So, there I go. I got thrown into it. Fortunately for me, the committee, part of which I inherited and part of which I brought on new, I had some judges, some instructors, some CBJ instructors, just a really strong group and a background. And we started taking a look at continuing education like almost everyone has in their career for their day job. Right? Everybody's got to take something that they have to take either once a year or every couple of years. Some of it's just a reminder. Some of it is an update on the newest and latest and greatest. So we tried to combine all of those. And that's literally what we've been working on. Everybody walks away from our committee meetings with homework assignments and comes back. And we worked as a team to come up with the JCUP. That's what we coined it as. Which is the Judge Certification Update Program. And if you look in the outline that's in the bull sheet, and also it's on the KCBS's webpage on the mail, we decided that in order to roll this out, there were certain things that needed to happen first. The first of which that we came across was after doing an analysis of the scoring system, we realized that 3s and 4s were used so little. Thank you for bringing that up. So if you've got, maybe a small handful of judges that use those, that I don't know where they decide whether the center of the scale is, or maybe that barbecue is just improved so much because of cooking classes and things, that there really was no need to have those on there. And I remember when this first went out and hit social media, there was a little bit of a backlash in the beginning. And then some of the people that were concerned about it came back and said, you know what? They went back and they looked at their scores, and in their entire judging career, they might have only given 3 or 4 3s and 4s. So when I say 3s and 4s were used so little, if you took the number of 3s and the number of 4s combined and totaled them up and then compared them to all the other scores that were used in any given year, 0.25% or 1/4% was all that they were used. So what's the point in having them? Okay. So that was the first step. Now we're left with the numbers of 9 through 5, and the new center of the scale is a 7. Let's jump to the next slide, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's all right.
Trying to get fancy here.
All right. Step 2, and this is reading the way the new scoring is approved. The new scoring will read: the scoring system is from 9 to 5 and 2, all whole numbers from 9 to 5, and the number 2 may be used to score an entry. This is the next part that we made an enhancement to. 9 is still excellent, 8 is very good, 7 is good, 6 is fair, 5 is poor, and 2 is inedible. As with before, a score of 1 is still available at the discretion of the reps for a disqualification. Next slide, please.
All right. And I guess we'll talk about this in a second about the ones with the foreign objects and stuff, but we'll get into that.
Yep. Okay. So when we were developing our continuing education and we came up with the new descriptions, and I'm going to get into more about this first. You'll notice that the word average has been removed, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But we wanted to have a way to convey the new scoring system, especially for new judges, that they could relate to. And I stumbled across the academic scale of grading and noticed that we had the same number of spots, with a 9 being the same thing as an A, an 8 being the same thing as a B, a 7 being the same thing as a C, 6 being a D, and a 5. So we were using the word or the letter U in this example, mostly because in some school systems, they don't like the word F. It can be controversial. So we won't say that. We're just going to say that, a 5 is going to be poor, or unsatisfactory was one of the many words that we threw around. If you guys knew how much time we spent on deciding whether it was going to be unsatisfactory, F for failed, I think that consumed an entire meeting right there, trying to be politically correct and convey a meaning at the same time. But that's how much thought went into this. So this is a teaching analogy. You won't see A, B, C, D, and a U on the scoring scale. What you will see are the new terms as reflected, 9 being excellent, 6 being fair, so on and so forth. Again, you still have 2 as inedible, and 1 is disqualification with reps approval. But if you're trying to teach somebody new coming into this sport, or if you're just looking for something that you can use that you're familiar with to get a grasp of how we intend the scale to be used, think back to what most people probably had for the report cards. If you get an entry that you can find nothing wrong with, okay, the taste is there, the tenderness is there, the cook did an excellent job, well, maybe that it's a 9, it's an excellent, okay? It's not perfect, but if you can't find anything wrong with it, and they did an excellent job, reward them with a 9 for excellent. Maybe the taste and tenderness are almost excellent. It's still a very good entry. Something maybe just a little too spicy or a little not. This is where we get into the judges and their experience as to whether they would award an 8 for very good. And it just goes down there. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but just using this as a teaching analogy of how we intend these numbers to be used.
And real quick, I think one of the reasons y'all are trying to do this is there's been different forms of judging or training in the past. Right? Start in the middle, work up. How are we trying to get is that a way of getting rid of the start at the bottom or work your way from the bottom or whatever? Is that something that was brought up into this, or is that something completely different?
This is one of the results of us looking at our teaching methods over the past. So we've been around for 35 years. I think our first class was I'm trying to remember what year it was taught. Maybe it was 93. Somebody gave me some of this background as we were going through doing all the research for this. But yeah, we've had 3 distinct teaching methods for judges over the course of our history. First, we said start at the 9 and work your way down. Then we told everybody to start at the 6, which at that time was average, which is another conversation we're going to get into. And then we came back and we said, you know what, don't start anywhere. Just, use the description that you see that best suits or best fits, and that's the number that you give that entry. How do you take thousands of judges that all have, and I've heard this before, I don't know if you've heard this, but I've had judges tell me, well, I was taught by Mike Lake back on this day that this is the way it's going to be done. And until I have another class that tells me otherwise, this is what I'm going to do. Judges have been very good about standing by what they've been taught and using that. And we've never had a formal way of getting everybody back to the table when we've had a change. So looking at the different methods, looking at the scores that weren't being used, thinking about a way of doing continuing education to bring all of our judges. It doesn't matter when you've been taught, but we're bringing everybody back to the table, okay, and saying, okay, guys, this is the way it's going to be from this point on, and doing it in a way that is industry acceptable because we all have continuing education in our day jobs. Why wouldn't we have it here too? And one other thing I'll mention that this is not a this is a written, critiqued. The number of judges that I reached out to about this, and I hope some of them are probably chiming in now. I've got a beta testing group, and some of them are probably our biggest critics. If there was somebody that spoke out about something on social media that I think was genuinely interested and had a really good reason for citing some concerns, they're the ones I reached out to get their assistance with this program. And they're going to be the first ones to beta test this to make sure that we have all sides looking at this. It's not just, I certainly wouldn't present this as something that is Cook team driven by any means. This is to make KCBS a better organization because we already do have some of the best judges, but we're going to bring all the judges up to the same level.
Awesome. You ready for the next slide?
Ready for the next slide.
All right.
Okay, here we get into this thing called average. And I'll tell you how this all came about. When we were reviewing the scores, I actually gave a homework assignment to the board. And when we discussed this, I was giving my status updates on this. And I asked every board member to go back, because it came into kind of a heated discussion as to what average was, to tell me in their own words what average meant. And it was surprising, not just from the board's perspective, because we got some really smart people on the board and they gave some really good answers. But one of the first things that came up is, are we talking average retail barbecue or are we talking average competition barbecue? There were some strong disagreements. So that's why, we decided that the word average just doesn't fit when it comes into scoring because there are just too many it's too subjective, if that's the right way to put it. So we're going to, when it comes to the scoring, we want to see the word average removed altogether. And last thing is that it also invites comparative scoring. And that is not something that this organization does.
And that is something that I think is very important. When you say that, what do you mean by it's not comparative scoring?
When a judge is sitting at the table and they're evaluating entries, they are not trying to decide who's the winner. They are not looking at, we hope not anyway. We are hoping that every judge is judging each sample based on its own merit, presentation, taste, and tenderness. They're there to score it. They're there to evaluate it using their expertise and their skills as judges and their palate. But they're not there to determine who the winner is on that table. So if you say that something is average, are you saying that, because it's not as good as this one or it's better than that one? That's one of the ways that I would say that average is not meant to be used in comparative scoring.
I got you. So we've got Jim on now. Jim has jumped on. I don't think we had the video, but Jim Frazee is a judge, and is that if you're good with that? Charles, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I just lost him. Well, I was going to bring him on, and he's not here now. So hopefully we'll get him back on. And he's been having technical issues. I've been texting him back and forth or emailing back and forth as you've been talking. So sorry about that. We're going to try and get him on just to get the judges' perspective on what they think. But before we get into that, how does a judge go about, like, when is the time frame that this is going to be available to judges?
All right. So we have already shot the videos, and they're in editing right now. If you look at, I think there's a timeline on the bottom of the release in the bull sheet. It's an aggressive timeline, I'll tell you, because it took a long time for us to develop this content. But now that the videos have been shot, we're going through and we're watching them, checking them for content. For those judges that have heard the new MP3 voice, the judge's MP3, the shortened one that's about 7.5, 8 minutes long. We've used that gentleman's voice. By the way, his name is Randy Haynes. He's from the Outdoor Cooking channel in Texas. Met him doing an interview with Smithfield. And when we were done with the interview, I asked him, I said, dude, you got a great voice. How would you, do you do side work? It turns out that's his day job. So we're really thrilled to have his voice narrating all of this. But the questions and the videos will go into the KCBS.US website. We've always had a learning management system there, but we've never leveraged it for something such as this. Judges will not have to go to a new website. They will not have to learn a new password. They'll be able to use the same website that they go in to check contests and to check their judges portal. And they'll be able to launch the JCUP program right out of it and take the testing. I'm hoping by the end of this month, we'll start doing the beta testing. Judges like Jim Frazee and more than a handful of others. I probably have 15 or 20 different judges out there that have all had input as things have gone along. But they'll take it and they'll give us our feedback if we need to make any tweaks. And we're saying early in the 2020.
Bring Jim on.
Okay.
You'll go with that, Charles, and we see if we can make this work. His microphone is muted. Let's see if we can unmute his mic. Jim, can you hear us? You want to unmute your mic. All right. So as we get working with him, I'll see if we. Oh, there he is. Hey, Jim, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Charles, can you hear him?
I can hear him just fine.
Good. All right, Jim, as a judge, welcome to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how much you've judged.
Well, I'm from the Orlando, Florida area, between 300 contests to date, and spend most of my time as a table captain, but also enjoy cooking with my son up in North Carolina whenever we can. He's got the space, so he's got all my smokers up there.
That's great. That's great. Well, Jim, I know you've missed a lot of our show, but Charles has been going over the JCUP, and just wanted to see if you have any, as a judge, what are your thoughts on this new change?
Well, I think JCUP is an excellent way of providing new information for all the judges, both existing and new ones that are coming in. It has a wonderful way, a continuing educational way of bringing the judges through the 8 modules. It's not a test as such. It's an educational process that you keep working it until you get 100%. This is about as friendly as to the judges as you can get. And it looks like it's going to be a great way of updating the judges on all the new changes. And over this last year or two, we've had quite a few changes.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen, Jim?
Well, I think the pork rule is definitely one of the things we've got the rule set up so it's similar to the other 3 meats. The small tweaking that we did on finding a little piece of material in the box on the judging table is definitely going to be a positive.
Hold on 1 second, Jim, if you don't mind. We didn't really get into that, Charles.
Okay. We
Do
won't
you
right
want to
now.
talk about that too, Charles, or is that something you want
Oh
to
no,
talk about?
that's all part of this content for tonight. It's fair game.
Okay.
All right. So give a little bit. I mean, I thought it was really interesting. And tell me if I read this wrong, that if somebody finds a foreign object in the box or whatever, that one judge is going to give you a 1, but the other judges continue to try the food, sample the food, and then give it a score as they would give it. Is that correct?
That is correct. You know, the example that I want to use here is we've all that piece of dreaded aluminum foil, right? Your thermal pin went in, pushed a sliver of aluminum foil into a rib or a brisket slice, and you know the rep will bring that whole box back to you. Okay, so now in the 2022 season, if you've got your 6 rib bones in a box and one judge finds something that is a cause for bringing the rep over to it, you're not going to do that until after the other judges have done their judge. He's going to keep his game face on, right? And then they'll present it. If it's a sliver of aluminum foil, only that one judge's points will be turned into 1s. Which if that's your lowest score, that's your lowest score. You still get to have your entry judged and your scores counted. So
That's a great positive for the teams because in the past, one little sliver in one of the boxes would kill the team for that particular meat, and it really wasn't fair in any way for the teams. This really gives them a better base to work on, and I think it should be really considered very positive from all the teams' standpoint, and I think from the judges too, because you'll see a lot of judges going in there and they'll judge, and then all of a sudden the boxes are disqualified, and they'll say, "Well, my piece of chicken was excellent. I wanted to give it a 9, and now you're telling me I've got to give it a 1." This won't be necessary under this new process, and I think that's really going to be great for the teams and the judges all together.
I think that's great. I mean, great. However you look at it, I think it's great that it's being brought up and brought attention to, because that, if anything happens, it's something like that is like so. I mean, as a cook, we need to be very well aware of what we're doing and how we're working with the meat and everything else. But that happens, right, Charles? I mean, it happens weekly, I'm sure.
I'm a ticking time bomb. It happens to everybody, and it's going to happen to me one day. It's just a matter of when. So you can't be careful enough. And if this keeps my entire box from getting disqualified, I can only imagine how disheartening. I think Andrew, trying to think of his name, Sauced out of North Carolina.
Yes, Scott Adams.
Scott Adams, thank you. I was at a contest where he got 3 really great calls, and he didn't get a brisket call. And then I learned later it was because of a piece of a paper towel. And I don't know if it was, visibly seen, or if it was found under the brisket after the fact or whatever. I was told that paper towels were no longer allowed in his trailer after that. But he probably would have GC'd that competition had it not been for that. So, I don't think that I think it's just one of these things that it just makes sense to tweak the rule like this for a foreign object.
Yeah.
You can almost look at this whole last season, this whole year in which the committees have been working on different adjustments, and most of what we've been working on and been approved by the board have been very positive for all the membership. So this is really a great year for the members in the KCBS.
I couldn't agree more. I am just proud, because there was a lot of doubt, right? Like, I mean, we had Emily come on the show summertime, and it was like, we're making changes. I mean, how many times have we heard in the past, we're making changes and things don't change, right? So this, to me, if there's anything I know about barbecue cook teams, we complain about everything. right? If we can't find something to complain about, we're not doing our job, I guess. But I know people are going to find something to get bitter about. But I am just very excited that things are moving in the right direction, right? Like there's stuff happening. There's been things that have been brought to the attention of the board, and the board is literally taking the time to go over it and spend time and make changes and do things to better barbecue. So to me, I'm very excited. I don't get to cook as much as a lot of y'all, but it's all, I mean, it's everything's moving in the right direction in my opinion. So Charles, I know we've talked about a little bit, but is there a cost associated with this?
Right now, there is not. We've intentionally rolled this out as part of if you're a judge in good standing, you'll have access to this. With the amount of time and money with video development and things like that went into this, as we continue to make improvements to it, I can't say that there would never be a cost for something like this in the future. But for right now, we have decided that we need to get this rolled out, that the continuing education is the important part. And we'll see where things go with future boards. I don't know if I'll be part of that decision or not. My term, I got another year of this. So we'll see what happens after that. But no, right now, there is no cost associated with this at this time. We're also looking at this certification should be good for 2 years. That's what we've got slated right now, that once you've taken it, you won't have to take it again for 2 years. From beginning to end, we expect it to take the average person about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes to go through. But you don't have to do it all at once. As Jim mentioned, there's 8 separate modules. You go in, you take the first one. Actually, there's no questions associated with the first one, which is Emily's introduction of why we're doing this and why it's so important to the organization, to judges, and to cook teams. We think that most cook teams have judges, are judges, and anybody, even if you're not a judge, I would think that you'd want to take it just so you can see what the judges are looking for, how the judges are being trained. I think that would make any cook a better cook, seeing the other side of it. The other modules, the longest one I think right now might be a 13-minute video. Some of them are quite a bit shorter than that, but at the end, you're going to get 5 questions. And those are not trick questions. It's not like the master's exam where you really have to read into it. The questions are just enough for us to make sure that you actually got exposed to the information in the video. And the LMS system has a feature where if you get the question wrong, we can tell you why you got it wrong, and you can go back and take it again, and you can get it with the question right the next time. So this isn't something where we're trying to put hurdles up and trip somebody up intentionally. This is just us trying to do a very thorough job of getting a lot of information out in a reasonable way that we think will be fun.
So it sounds to me, I'm not a judge, unfortunately, but it sounds to me as if you're a judge and you just put the time and effort into it, you're going to be able to get this certification.
I would expect most judges would probably be able to get a 90% right off the bat. It's if you've never seen, if you hadn't heard that we updated the scoring system, well, now you're going to get full exposure to the new scoring system. There are some things we go into each and every category. And by the way, from the content development perspective, we had asked a lot of judges and did a lot of research and took information that it came back to us about things that judges see other judges do inside the judging tent. Something that I wouldn't see as a cook team, okay? Something that I might see as a judge. And one of the examples, I'm just going to give this as an example, a comment card came in one day where a pork medallion didn't pass the pull test, okay? Fair enough. I mean, we do teach a pull test as an indication for tenderness for a brisket slice, right? So why couldn't you do that to a pork medallion? But we don't teach that. So things that we found, we were looking for the top 10 things that judges see other judges do that KCBS doesn't teach, that aren't part of our methodology. And we wanted to focus on those things. Another great example is hanging a slice of brisket over your finger, okay? We teach the pull test as an indication for tenderness. Mouthfeel is the only thing that you're really supposed to base your score off of. I should say that it's the only thing you base your score off of. but it is an acceptable method as an indication for tenderness. And when you take your brisket slice and you break it apart, we want you to take your first bite of that brisket from either side of where you broke it apart in the middle. And all of this, going through all the different categories, we're hoping will make for more consistent scores, because the methodology says that, approach your bite the first way this way. And the more consistent our scoring is, the better feedback that the teams are going to get as to what they may or may not need to improve upon. Should just make things much more gooder, as we say up here.
That's right. So, Jim, what is some things that you do as a judge that helps you look at these different things?
Any particular process in the way I'm judging one of the meats, or?
Yeah. Just say ribs. Like, is there a certain way that you bite a rib, or as a judge, is there a way that you're trained to do each meat?
I take a soft or light bite in that rib in the center and down to the bone, and I expect it to pull off gently off the bone. And generally that bone is going to change to a little bit lighter, a white color. It's going to have a really good texture in your mouth. That mouthfeel is exceptional when you have a really good piece of rib meat. It's an exceptional bite, just like chicken is. When you bite into that, almost instantly it's going to be an 8 or a 9 or whatever, because of that mouthfeel and the taste that you get from that bite.
Nice. So, Charles, is that the white on the bone? Is that something that you're talking about that is not something that y'all are taught, or is that something that is taught?
No, if I'm not mistaken, that's something that is taught. Not for many rib. If you look at my rib scores, not for many ribs that I cooked this year. But I've had a couple good batches here and there.
It's not something you see every time, but
does it affect your score?
I tend to see it quite a few times during the year when everything works just perfectly. But generally, that meat is going to come when you gently bite it. It's going to come off of the bone, but the rest of the meat on that rib bone is going to stay where it is. So you get that clean, nice bite shape on the rib. And in most cases, you turn the rib around and you take another bite in the center off the other side. It's going to stay on the rib, although sometimes that second bite may loosen up more of the meat, even though it may still be a 999 on the scoring.
Very
you don't always get the pure white, but I've seen it enough that I kind of get excited when I see something like that, because it's just really special when a rib does that. It's just fun. It's part of the judging thing.
That's awesome. So I'm just sitting here thinking, Chewin the BBQ Fat, I'm going to have a whole thing with judges, because this to me is intriguing, right? Just hearing the way a judge thinks when they take a bite. They're also looking at the bone and everything else. And I know what gets cooks excited when they have a good cook, right? Like, Charles, when you just nailed pork or you nailed brisket, right? You know what that feels like for you as a cook. But to hear a judge sit there and say, man, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, I know it's going to be something special. That's something that's cool to me to hear. I'd love to have a whole show on something like that in the future. So, Jim, I'll probably get in touch with you again soon. Charles, is there anything else that people need to know about judges, cooks, KCBS members, whoever, about that? Because I know there's somebody I don't remember what it was. There's a grace period, but is a judge allowed to judge if training has not been completed? How is this being monitored for completion? Was a question that was asked. So I know that's something that we discussed earlier.
Yeah. So, first, we're really looking forward to getting our feedback from the beta testers and helping us determine not only if we need to make any tweaks to it, but how well this is received. In my mind, and I think in a lot of the committee members' mind, think about a master judge. There are a lot of organizations out there, organizers, and the folks that select the judges, the judge coordinators, that love to see that master judge criteria when they're getting applications in for a contest. if this JCUP is perceived well and we see some really good feedback and results from it, I would think that having your JCUP certification is going to be just as sought after as a master certification. And those are the folks that might end up getting picked to fill the seats at a contest first. So before we go into drawing a line in the sand of when we think that this is going to be a hardcore, if this is going to be a hardcore requirement at some point in the future, I'd like to think that demand for JCUP certified judges is probably going to drive this, and we may not have to do much. I mean, there's nothing out there that says you have to be a master judge, right? You can judge 100 contests and never cook with a cook team. I'd be unfortunate if you don't, because we'd like to see you be a master judge, but there's no hardcore requirement there. When we first set this out, we started bouncing ideas back and forth. And a lot of this is going to come back from feedback from the judges as to, hey, this is cool, and I took this, and now I'm getting into more contests because it's sought after. That's where we would like to see this go. That's where my focus is right now, is to make this such a cool thing and something that actually benefits the judges, benefits the organizers, that it is sought after, and it grows organically.
I mean, I think that's coming from the teams, right? Like, I think the teams are going to be the one out there pushing, hey, do you have 100% JCUP judges, right? Like, I mean, because you hear that now. What percentage of judges do we? Like, I think that's going to be something coming from the teams once the teams buy into it and see what's going on. I think that, which to me, I think it seems to have addressed all the issues that have been brought up in the past that we've talked about on the show and everybody else. So to me, it seems like y'all listened to what's going on. But I do believe it's going to take the teams saying, hey, we want those kind of judges at these contests. And Jim, I'm sure y'all don't have an issue with it as judges. It sounds like it's something y'all would want to do just to be able to cook to judge the contest, correct?
Well, I think it's just another level in the whole repertoire of judging, and that you've reached the master judge, you've done so many contests, but when you take the JCUP and you keep that up on that 2-year interval, it indicates to the organizer, to the teams, to everybody else that in fact you're interested enough in doing a good job, a quality professional job as a judge, that you're willing to go through this process every 2 years to make sure that you are up to date with all the current rule changes and judging techniques that are out there. So I think it's a real positive process, and I'm ready. I'm ready to go in and test it and see just what it's like. I'm not a real test taker. I was always a person that went out in the field and aced the field camp, but didn't do as well maybe in the theory class. But I always seemed to be able to do the operational thing a little bit better. This is kind of operational. It gives you an opportunity to go in there and learn all the new things that are happening, and you can go in and take it over and over again until you get 100%, until you've actually learned everything in each one of those modules. My wife was a university teacher, and that's kind of the way she worked with all her students. And it always showed in the comments that the students would put back on the university setup that they really liked her as an instructor because she spent the time working with them to teach them what they had to know and not just test them and fail them if they didn't learn it on the first go through. So I think this whole process is going to be positive, and I think there's going to be some judges that are just whining a little bit because they've got to do something to keep judging. But in general, I'd say the overwhelming majority of judges are going to get in there and try this thing out just as quickly as they can.
Yeah, I mean, and Charles, you're saying you don't have to do it to continue judging. I think the cooks are going to recommend that the organizer, the judge coordinator, bring in judges because to me, just listening to this, and I know Chris Schaefer just made a comment, but to me, it just says, hey, look, I'm willing to put in a couple hours of my time to have a better experience for everybody. Because I know as cook teams, at the end of the day, at the end of a contest, it's, well, I hit this table, hit the good table. Nobody ever talks about hitting good tables. They only talk about hitting bad tables. And it's like, if we know that it's a closer playing field and the judges really do care about trying to perfect their craft, like the cooks are perfecting their craft, because I do believe, I hear a lot of cooks wish a judge would come cook with us so they see what we go through. Well, how about the cooks go judge so that they can see what judges go through? Because it's and I don't know. I mean, Charles, what do you think as a guy that's chasing points, right? Like you are I would consider a points chaser. What are your thoughts on knowing that all the judges are on a level playing field, I guess?
So that's the goal. We are looking at putting methodologies in place to make our judging more consistent, contest to contest, coast to coast, and then worldwide. So if by using these methodologies, if we get everybody just a little bit closer, and I'm not talking about everybody giving high scores. I'm just saying that, if a box comes through and, the judges are within a half point of each other, for the entire table, it doesn't matter whether the half point was up here or down there. But if, for the table on that sample, if they're getting closer and closer and closer to a similar score, these methodologies are working. They are making the tables more consistent. And, we've all been in a contest. And I'll tell you what, I probably benefited more by Tables of Angels. There's some GCs that I've walked out with, and I realized that, I missed a table that may not have left me with the same score that I walked away with. So for the benefit of everybody, this benefits the organizers. I think, it helps the judges. And, if cook teams feel really good when they get a score sheet and they're like, yeah, well, I knew when I turned that in, I could have pushed it a little further, or maybe I went a little heavy-handed with that, and their scores are reflecting that. It's going to make for better barbecue coming from the teams because they're getting more consistent feedback. Maybe better barbecue means better barbecue for the judges to sample at contests. Let's focus on improving everything and not just throwing darts out there and seeing what kind of scores we come back with.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, and Chris Shaver said overscoring is a bigger problem right now than the table of death. It's amazing to me how many 700s are being out there. I know the food's probably better than it's ever been, I'm sure, but it's just amazing to me how many 700s are getting thrown around at contests these days. I mean, 700 used to be a big deal. Now you get 5th, 6th, 7th place with a 700, and it's like, well, how big of a deal is a 700 anymore? I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole
in the Northeast. In the Northeast, it's a very big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And see, that's kind of the thing that we're talking about right here, right? Is like it shouldn't be just a big deal in the Southeast and the Midwest. It should be a big deal right? It should be more consistent than what. And I think there's some other issues that go into those high scores. We'll talk about that for another Chewin the BBQ Fat. But organizers going in there and talking to judges. I just don't know if organizers should be talking to judges before. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Jim, go ahead.
I wanted to something you said about being required. When we first set this out, we were hoping that it's going to be required by everybody, but then we realized, looking at it logistically, how do you roll out a program and get everybody certified within a certain time frame? So that that it works, because not only are we rolling this out, but we now have to go back to our in-person class, and we have to make sure that these concepts already complement the class, but we got to make sure that we dive a little bit deeper into that slide deck for the in-person class for consistency. We have to go back and we have to just the score change alone. You've got the reps manual, you've got the organizers manual, you've got the rules. So we've still got a lot of work to do while we're rolling this out. This is wishful thinking, but I'd like to see if within whatever the time frame is. Let's say in the first year, that 80% of our active participating judges. I mean, we might have 15,000 judges on the books. but probably, I'm just going to throw a number out here, maybe 4,000 of them are out there every weekend that are actively judging at any given point in time. So we'll look and probably see of our active pool of judges. And I just made that number up, by the way. I don't know what it is.
Don't hold him to it.
What's that?
I said, don't hold him to it.
Yeah.
You may.
But when we reach a certain threshold, if we, in the first year, if 80% of our active judges get out there and take this and it's well received, then we're going to sit down and we're going to reevaluate if we need to put another incentive out there to get the remaining 20% to take it. Again, this is all about driving consistency, driving continuing education, and the more judges and cook teams that we get on board with this, that we would start to seeing those improvements that we're looking for.
So I have a question. I know this is basically continuing education, which I think is a huge deal, right? Like, that's great. How many new judges are coming on, and how are we getting new judges and new teams for that matter? But we'll stick with judges tonight. How are we able to get new judges coming in?
Are you talking about how many classes we have and where are these people coming from?
Yeah. And how do people know about it? How do people find out about classes and getting involved in it? I mean, I guess that's probably a whole nother.
So I personally, from the approvals that I've done, I think every class comes across my desk at one point in time for me to say, just to review it. Probably more than half, if not 75% of those come from organizers. Think about Apex, North Carolina. We just had one in West Virginia. So places where organizers are having trouble finding certified judges is one avenue that drives this. We've also had a surge in corporate companies that want to do this as a team building exercise. They might be barbecue related. Royal Oak has one. Smithfield had one. There are a lot of corporate that do this as not just a part of team building, but also because either the company itself is a part of competition barbecue and they want to get more of their employees at least aware of what's going on. So those are the two biggest that I've seen. I think there are also some areas that just happen to have classes every year or every other year and continue to do so. So while during COVID, we certainly saw a slowdown. We saw a slowdown of everything, right? We saw a slowdown of competitions. Classes did cut back quite a bit, but there's a resurgence in that, and we're seeing more and more requests coming in to get new judges minted and out there in the tents.
That's awesome. Real quick, Charles, and we'll change subjects again because we're about out of time. Jim, is there anything else as a judge that you like what you see, what you don't like what you see, or anything along those lines?
Right now, the JCUP I like pretty much as a whole package. The only thing that we really can't deal with in the JCUP, and I don't know if anybody can really deal with it entirely, is the regional impact of the way people have been brought into barbecue. Did they like heavy smoke? Did they like vinegar base in Eastern North Carolina, or did they like Kansas City or Texas barbecue or whatever? That little bit of twitch is going to be hard to bring into the judging so that everything is totally equitable from one part of the country to the other. All we can do is to make all the techniques similar, and then hopefully the judges will judge what's presented to them, and that regional difference will be buffered a little bit. But that's always going to be kind of an issue that you might deal with when you go down South Carolina and or in southern Georgia where we've got a farm, and and you go in and he says, how much barbecue would you want? And I said, well, just give me some of your barbecue and then some sauce on the side. And he said, son, you want to eat barbecue here, you're going to get that Golden's mustard splashed on top of that pulled pork, and that's just the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, then you can leave, that type of thing. So you've always got all those regional differences that are going to affect the way some of the judges that have been brought up differently are going to judge or look at the barbecue. But if we we all look at it in the same way. We all use the same tests, and we judge what's presented and not what we like best or don't like best. Do we like burn ends or don't like burn ends? That type of thing that the reps are constantly hitting the judges with at every one of the events. If we get around those types of issues, I think with the system we have with JCUP, it'll even the playing field quite a bit, and it'll be interesting to see how things begin to change a little bit, and if maybe we can eliminate some of those tables where we have a real problem, or if we have a problem, it's one judge and that score is dropped, and we're in good shape. If you have two judges, one of them won't be dropped, and then you've got a problem on the table. So you're always trying to get as much consistency as possible.
Perfect. Awesome. Chris Schaefer, of course, heavy smoke, black label, white label is okay. So that he was not talking about that for you, buddy. Chris in the comments. So real quick, I know we're running out of time, Charles, and I've kept you a long time, and I do appreciate it. The KCBS World Invitational is coming up. Is there anything else coming up in KCBS that you want to talk about?
Right now, that the end of the year is done, that the JCUP has gotten to a certain point. The next couple of weeks for me is going to be focusing on the World Invitational. We're waiting for the final team list where people are going to be parked, so we can put that into the team packet and get that distributed to everybody. We've got our outstanding judge nominations. That's been completed. So there are a handful of judges out there, not just in the U.S., but around the world, that are going to get a nod from their peers that we're going to present. There's a lot of really good things going on. So, yeah, we're going to focus on the World Invitational. Me personally, I've got a lot of meat that I've got to trim for that, and I've got a contest in Currituck this weekend too. So
never stops.
It never stops. So just because the toy for KCBS is wrapped up. But we still have 2 more months for the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association. And we're shifting, the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association is shifting to match the KCBS team year. So Currituck is going to count twice. It's going to count for 2021 and 2022, as is the one in Goldsboro in December. So I won't be winterizing my barbecue trailer until probably about Christmas.
There you go. And I love it. It's all, hey, you're getting points towards next year. You're getting an early jump for next year. So that's,
if I'm gonna get up there where Brad and Joe are, I got to work harder. I got to start earlier. I got to do something.
Everybody. I mean, when you're talking about Chris, you got Chris on here, the same thing. Brad, Joe, Paul, all these guys, man, it is so cool to see. And I know everybody's excited, and I know and Chris said the same thing. I would like to thank Charles for caring and to put the work in on this. He's one of the smartest dudes in barbecue, and I could not agree more. Charles, I do appreciate all that you do. We've had many conversations past couple of weeks, and I do appreciate what you do for barbecue, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Guys, I got to say that Jim was part of my rules committee last year, and Jim has been reading over all this as one of the beta testers as we've been developing this. It's not just me. We've got committees of some very smart, very dedicated people that just give an incredible amount of time to KCBS because they love the sport and they want to keep barbecue alive and well. And it doesn't work unless we're all working together.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Jim, is there anything you want to end us with tonight?
Yeah, I just want to say that it pays to have a good leader in charge of each one of the committees, and it's been that way the last couple of years, and it's been a real joy to work on some of these changes. So we're going to keep on going, and as an organization, KCBS has an incredible level of professionalism. And you talked a few minutes ago about the quality of the barbecue. I've noticed over the last 10 years a consistent change and increase in quality of barbecue, whether it be the Masters group or the backyard. And really in the backyard barbecue, we've seen a lot of really good teams come up with some high quality barbecue that have scored very well in the judging arena. So I think the future of Kansas City, if a lot of those backyard teams will eventually move into the Masters category, this is looking really good.
That's awesome.
I think I heard that we have 6 teams from the Mid-Atlantic area that all intend to go Master Series next year. And Jim, I know this. We got to wrap this up. We don't have a backyard judging class, and we only have one judging class, right? It's Master Series.
Right.
So I've competed in the single meet category against these backyard teams, and I also worked a table at a backyard worked the turn-in table at a backyard contest recently. And everything that they turned in would have been, if you didn't know that you were at a backyard contest, you would have assumed that these guys were all Master Series cooked. There's only one level for chicken. There's only one level for ribs. And these guys do an excellent job. I'd say that they're hyper-focused on their craft, which is going to make them great Master Series if and when they decide to move up.
Yeah, and some teams won't because they don't want to compete at the regularity that the Masters teams have to get into the Team of the Year challenge. But some of these backyard teams just like to do it for the fun of it. So many, maybe 5, 10 events in the year, and they just have a great time doing that and meeting everybody that they know along the tour. So it just depends on the individual teams and their ability to finance what is not an inexpensive sport to stay in and compete, especially at the highest level.
Jim, that what you just described there is not just for backyard. I would say for Master Series. Out of all of us that are out there competing, what we have 15, 1,600 teams competing this year, over 80% of our customers, we're talking about our teams and our judges, they only go out and do 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 contests a year. I can't wait to see what the numbers look like this year past COVID, for being after COVID. But almost a majority, at least 80%, I would say, only do a handful of contests a year. But they still pay the same membership fee, and they still, put in the same effort to learn their craft, whether it's judging or cooking. And the organizers that have to really work, there's only a small handful of us that stay in the forefront and try to go in and week out to do it. That's just a small part of us. It's the other guys, making it fun for them, making sure that they enjoy the sport, making sure that they enjoy going out there and judging, because that's the biggest part of our group.
Yeah, well, again, if you're not having fun, you're not really enjoying the sport of barbecue. That's the baseline in all of this that we're talking about. Everything has to be under some rule framework, but you still, as a base, want to make sure that everybody, all the membership in KCBS, are having a good time. They're enjoying being together and socializing, as well as cooking excellent barbecue.
That's awesome. I just love to hear everything's growing, everything's going in the right direction, and it sounds like it is. Well, y'all, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead. Do you need something?
No. I was fingers crossed.
That's right. That's awesome. Charles, if y'all will stay on when we get off, I have a quick question to ask you. Thank y'all so much for all that you've done. Thank you for all the comments. Appreciate everything that's come in tonight. Hope y'all have a wonderful week. Congratulate all those that won. Charles, congratulations again on a great season. Jim, thanks for all you do for barbecue and judging. And guys, I hope y'all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week on Chewin the BBQ Fat.